Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. Seen through, I've been there. The world makes one wish for a leisurely life, and it's filled with all sorts of interesting laws. Leyland chuckled, and then looked at the weird girl. I'd never have thought that the shadow girl didn't actually fall, instead coming to the astral plane. Faith is powerful, but it's also a cage for us gods. Shar grew dazed, seemingly recalling past memories. When we were on the verge of falling in the dusk of the gods, I actually managed to see through some things. No matter how great it is, restricted power is worth nothing. In comparison, the Magi's approach to the truth. Even so, you were the only one able to make a real change. Leyland's eyes glinted as he inquired subtly. Hee. You don't need to try sounding me out. I was the only one who crossed the crystal sphere to come to the astral plane. Devoid of faith, we gods are like fish out of water, and things become dangerous for us. Passing through the crystal sphere in the face of imminent death requires a great amount of courage and luck. I was the only one fortunate enough to succeed. Shar's lips quirked up in a smile. I've answered your questions. Now you can fall at ease. In the next moment, she suddenly attacked. Rumble, the entire shadow world seemed to come to life. Great origin force descended through the shadow weave, somehow boosting her strength past its limits as she seemed to reach the peak of rank 8. Beep. Target has locked onto host's aura, is tracking. Countdown. The AI chip warned in blood red. Leyland understood that she'd be able to find his main body sooner or later if he didn't do anything. Such was the terror of a peak rank 8 Magus. With his clone here, Shar could connect to his main body, injuring it grievously or even killing him along with it. The shadow weave allows you to completely wield extraordinary strength. It can even amplify world origin force. As expected of the mistress of the night, your wisdom is as dazzling as the stars. Leyland was also one of those beings of laws that did not have to worry about the world origin force. This method was like a breath of fresh air for him. Shar's usage of it wasn't something simple, instead optimized, boosted, and altered slightly. If world origin force was crude oil, then the shadow weave allowed her to process it, separating it into diesel, gasoline, and asphalt at different times, making it more usable. Leyland's own origin force weapon was similar, though it held a few more advantages. Although the shadow weave gave Shar power, it restricted her movements. On the other hand, the origin force weapon could adapt to various worlds. Palala. The raging shadow weave emerged from different areas, like a powerful electric grid that trapped Leyland within. If these are your last words, then I humbly accept your praise. Shar's sweet voice sounded, with no bloodlust whatsoever. However, at this moment, she had already issued a death penalty to this being of law under her. Before she reached the peak of rank 8 and completely fused with the shadow world, Shar still had a weak point. She wouldn't be able to break out of a siege of peak rank 8s, which was why she couldn't let the Magus who knew her secret leave. With her foresight, she naturally knew that Leyland's main body was at most a rank 7 Magus, and could likely be heavily injured or killed by her. Her killing intent multiplied, and under her control, the shadow weave swept towards him. With the support of a large world's origin force, even one with the power of a rank 8 Magus would definitely be in trouble under this one move. It's been a pity, Miss Shar. We could have discussed more possibilities. The AI chip's rays glinted in Leyland's eyes, and he suddenly sighed. Rumble. All of a sudden, a streak of green flames blazed on the voodoo doll's body and quickly spread all over its body. Are you trying to break all connections? Dream on. Shar snorted, and with a wave of her hands, powerful restrictive force descended. You overestimate yourself. Sue. Amidst the green waves, Leyland's figure suddenly turned into a meteor. As if he was committing suicide, he crashed into the weave that was closing in on him. Boom. All of a sudden, a feeling of extreme danger struck Shar's soul. It was a warning of failure, instantly reminding her of the danger she felt during the dusk of the gods. In fact, this sensation was even worse than what she'd felt back then. What's going on? Shar suddenly retreated, numerous spell rays flickering on her body. Circles of origin force formed an armor that began to envelop her. In what had been a sea of origin force within the palace, the girl in the crystal slowly opened her eyes, a trace of fear appearing on her expression. Buzz, turbulent, immense. A conscient that had initially been in a deep slumber suddenly awakened as it descended. Whoosh. The shadow weave extended, causing the little green meteor to jump out of the siege and leave behind a bright curve in the sky before disappearing. Char knew that the Magus had already completely destroyed all traces of the puppet, and it would be impossible to pursue him further. Now, however, her focus was on something else. What's going on? What's with this huge sense of danger that could harm my life? And the world will. Char closed her eyes, as if interacting with the great shadow will. Only after a long time did she open her eyes. It sensed an aura dangerous enough to kill me. Char bit her lips, looking serious. The more powerful a being was, the more afraid it was of death. This applied even more to her, who had been lucky enough to survive the dusk of the world of gods. What is it? A Netherese flying city? An extraordinary divine weapon? Or is it the earthen plate of destiny? All sorts of thoughts streaked through her mind, one after the other. Following that, she turned towards a region of the Empire. Although she had not been able to pinpoint his location, she still found the general vicinity. "All Snake, you've truly found a great helper this time," Char sighed, her body merging into the shadows. A terrifying web of darkness encircled the region Leyland was in under her command, surging in the shadows. Thousand Bears City, within the bedroom of a villa. Leyland opened his eyes slightly as a trace of black lightning flickered in the room. Some of the threads that had tried to pursue him were disconnected and swallowed, dissolved by darkness. Only once the process was complete did he stand up, recalling his meeting with Char. "Most of her divine immortality has been converted," Leyland sighed with a hint of pity. The divinity was the most important part. Godly power of laws could be devoured completely and used in an instant, allowing a Magus to multiply their strength. However, the reverse was not true. Having changed, Char was no longer a god. Even if Leyland devoured her, it would be great if he got even a fifth of the law of shadows. That small fight using his avatar had allowed him to determine Char's strength. She was near the peak of rank 8, only a few steps away from the boundary of rank 9. This strength exceeded that of the Snake Dowager. If Char had beings of laws helping her, even Leyland would have to consider retreat. Just like the wars between large countries in his previous world, these battles in the astral plane were all for profit. If there was little profit out of it along with the danger of injury or curses, nobody would want to fight. But it's too clean. The whole shadow world doesn't seem to have any other rank 7s aside from Char. Leyland felt a deep chill inside. There were still a few beings of law under the Snake Dowager's rule. They made deals with her, allowing her to watch over them without worry. However, there were no auras of law in the current shadow world anymore. Char is from the world of gods, after all. She wouldn't want her secrets discovered by other magi before she reaches the peak of rank 8. Leyland sighed. He had a feeling the rest of those existences had probably met their ends. The Snake Dowager should have discovered this by now, right? He pushed aside the curtains, his eyes seeming to pierce into the boundless starry skies and into another part of the empire. There was an ancient castle sitting atop a hill at the outskirts of a bright city. Such medieval structures had grown rare in recent times, becoming tourist sites more than anything else. A lady with a long black umbrella was leisurely walking across a shady pathway. She'd worn a coat of mink fur, and her tall black heels created piercing noises as they hit the ground. With her black silk gloves, she seemed elegant and posh. Under the headscarf was the face of a middle-aged woman. Her long eyes and lips were smeared with bright red makeup, giving her an enchanting look. The Snake Dowager had evidently learnt from the previous lessons and restrained much of her charm. While her current figure was beautiful, it was not enough to create trouble and suffering for the country. Raindrops dripped onto the roads and created a lively rhythm. The soil was all muddy, yet nothing seemed to stick onto her high heels. However, as there weren't many people nearby, nobody discovered this startling scene. Kidnapping Alilux, Jar Spectre, as well as a guardian of the mermaid clan, the Prophet Cal. The Snake Dowager's eyes held a trace of sadness. "You should have chosen me from the beginning." She walked directly into the ancient castle, but the dozing security guard did not notice her at all. Intensely familiar with everything in the castle, she continued on her way and walked into the basement. She finally arrived in front of a wall. The dirt-yellow Manson stones were covered with the mottled marks of history. The likeness of a two-handle vase had been carved in there with simple skill. "In All Snake's name," the Snake Dowager bit her lip, a trace of blood appearing and piercing into the body of the wall. The entire wall seemed to collapse, revealing a pitch-black passageway. In the end, she arrived in front of a simple altar. There she saw fragments of ceramic, radiating an atmosphere of chilling horror with concentrated resentment. The grudge had materialized even after thousands of years. Jar Spectre, so this is what became of your body. The snake dowager picked up a dirt yellow fragment of the vase, traces of black patterns wandering on the surface as they let out hissing sounds. It seemed like 1,000 snakes were flowing over each other. Having gotten what she wanted, the snake dowager quickly left. The passageway was discovered by a cleaner later, becoming a popular tourist destination. Another bright and beautiful day dawned in Thousand Bears City. Ah! Xavier stretched lazily and sat up in bed. Oh dear, I didn't manage to get my license again. I still have to ask for money from my parents at this age. Shouldn't I hurry up and find some odd jobs to do? He kneaded his temples in worry as he put his clothes on. The Imperial University was expensive to go to, and normal families could not afford it. Xavier had grown a bit of pride over his life, and he didn't want to use up his parents' money after he grew to adulthood. Tiring jobs like waiting tables don't have high salaries. I should become a bodyguard instead. My physique was crafted well by the snakebite fist, giving me great attack power. I can earn in excess of 10,000 seers a month. His self-confidence was greatly bolstered by his sturdy physique and willpower from training in martial arts. Several minutes later, he walked into the living room with toothbrush in mouth. He saw fried eggs, bread, and milk on the table, with a note stuffed under the plate. Jill's already gone to school. The scene of a little girl cooking breakfast from atop a stool appeared in his mind, and a smile blossomed on Xavier's face. Washing his face and rinsing his mouth, he sat down to eat breakfast and turned on the television. The television screen appeared in midair, broadcasting the clear and simple voice of a female anchor. Welcome to the morning news. Let's begin with economy. A few days ago, the Imperial Corporation declared that. Suddenly, the expression of the female anchor changed. Breaking news. Thousand Bears City's Golden Flower Primary School was attacked by an unknown party this morning. The casualties are currently unknown, and the police department and firefighters have hurried to the scene. 5 different organizations have presently taken responsibility for this attack. A sudden scene of dense fireworks appeared behind the anchor, showing a primary school. The police had erected a perimeter of warning tape, and faint weeping sounds could be heard from within. Bang! Xavier's expression turned blank, the cup of milk in his hand shattering on the floor. That's Jill's school. He immediately rushed out, pulling out the door with so much force that a hole the size of a fist was formed where the handle used to be. Has it begun? Next door to Xavier, Leyland also walked out from his residence. He saw Xavier rushing hot-bloodedly to Golden Flower Primary School, strolling behind him calmly with his own breakfast in hand. Jill, you must be all right. Xavier looked into the distant horizon. He could already see the dense black smoke over the school building, an ominous sign. Sirens could be heard in the distance. The closer he got, the worse the traffic jam became. There seemed to be a long queue of maglev trains on the tracks, with numerous traffic policemen maintaining order. Damn! Xavier ferociously slammed his taxi's door open and fled. In a few moments, he had disappeared to the end of the street, with money left carelessly on the seat. The driver's mouth gaped as if he had seen a ghost. With his agility and the fact that he was not all that far from the primary school in the first place, Xavier very quickly reached the location. Stop! What are you doing? An armored policeman blocked him from going ahead, examining him closely. I'm the brother of a student here. Her name's Jill. How is she? Xavier asked in a panicked voice. Robbers have taken hostages. We are currently working hard to rescue them. The policeman's gaze turned into a pity. I promise you that we will do our absolute best to rescue them. Now please go over there to register and wait. He pointed at an empty space where a group of parents had gathered. Many mothers were weeping openly. Damn, I want to go in. Xavier's face flushed with rage. I'm sorry, that is impossible. The policeman's expression changed. Don't make things difficult for us. Seeing a gun's black muzzle, Xavier rolled his eyes. Fine, I'll leave. I'm leaving. As he slowly left and walked around the school, he arrived outside an enclosed wall. There were policemen here as well, but it wasn't as densely protected as the last area. Okay, now. Xavier deeply breathed in and emitted a serpent's hiss, suddenly becoming a shadow which rushed forward. Stand still. Shoot. A cacophony of voices could be heard, as well as dangerous gunshots. However, Xavier had displayed his extraordinary power here, bending into an S as if he was a snake to dodge all the gunshots. He barely flipped over the wall into the campus, and exasperated howls sounded behind him. "Jill! Jill!" Xavier was extremely panicked in his heart, but his thoughts were eerily calm. He began to stealthily make his way towards Jill's classroom. The once happy campus had now become hell. The corpses of several students and teachers littered the hallway, the fresh red blood unpleasant to the eyes. "It's impossible, Jill would not have fallen here." Xavier encouraged himself to move onwards, silently drawing closer to Jill's class. The robbers had evidently based themselves here, congregating together. However, their attire was extremely strange. They were wearing black wind jackets with sunglasses. They don't look like robbers. A faint thought arose in Xavier's heart. However, at this point he already had no choice. After seeing the crowded figures and their firepower, he began to feel a little anxious. Right, the ventilation ducts. If I can restrain my life undulations, I can hide. Xavier's eyes brightened. He used snakebite fist to control his entire body's muscles and blood flow. Under the mysterious force, his blood slowly grew cold. His life undulations also became increasingly weak until he resembled a rock on the ground. Bang. A ventilation duct was kicked open, and Xavier slowly climbed towards the school building. "Why do we have to act like robbers, boss? Can't we just act directly?" Nobody was alerted to Xavier's presence, exchanging words which made his heart beat faster. "It's the mayor's fault. He said it would be bad influence. Well, someone else will take his position after this. That's the price for provoking the special forces." The Empire's Special Forces Division. Xavier's heart turned cold. He felt like he had interfered with some disastrous affair. Ah! Just at this moment, the sound of a girl crying out in alarm could be heard. Xavier's eyes widened in response. "It's Jill's voice." He crawled across at lightning speed. Looking through the opening in the ventilation shaft, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets at the scene he witnessed. Within the classroom, a teacher's body had slumped over the desk. Many little girls were crouched on the ground crying, with a huge man dragging Jill up. So annoying. He pinched a nerve behind Jill's head, which made her immediately faint. "Let go of my sister." Seeing this scene, Xavier couldn't hold back anymore. He jumped down from the ventilation shaft directly. Oh, so there was one left. The man in the wind jacket looked at Xavier and at the black apparatus in his hand. "It's a shame he's too old. There's no value in nurturing and brainwashing him." "Let go of my sister," Xavier roared as he charged ahead. However, he was blocked by a slanted-eyed youth with a pallid face. Heavy makeup was smeared on his face in thick layers, and he swiped his tongue across his brightly colored lips. "Give this one to me, he seems rather amusing," he said with an evil expression. A rapid shadow wristwatch flashed with light, and a wall of shadows stopped Xavier in his tracks. "All right, but pay attention to the time," the middle-aged man nodded. He threw Jill and two other girls over his shoulder and left. Damn it, damn it." Xavier's expression flushed a deep red. His arm suddenly softened, and like a snake with sharp fangs, he shattered the shadow wall into pieces. "Oh, a martial artist. I like it." Slant eyes seemed to brighten. "I know from experience that trash like you can last a little longer, so don't disappoint me. Don't even think about stubbornly resisting. I've already surpassed high-ranked mechanics and can directly connect to the highest layer of the shadow weave. Your martial skills are just a joke compared to high-ranked spells." SSS. A black shadow flashed past. Xavier reappeared in front of Slant Eyes, his fingers stabbing directly into his throat. "Jar, how is this possible?" Slanted Eyes fell to the ground in disbelief. "Even if you have powerful spells, your neurons are still too weak. Your processing ability cannot keep up at all. Before you even cast a spell, I could kill you over 10 times. Xavier rushed in. "Jill, Jill!" The deadly and vicious snakebite fist was now used by Xavier to a terrifying degree, and very soon the remaining kidnappers had their throats torn apart, dying in a gory fashion. He went up to the roof, but Xavier could only see an aircraft flying off in the distance. "No." Xavier fell helplessly to the ground. "I never thought that I'd be late." A sigh sounded beside him, and Xavier unconsciously retaliated. However, the powerful snakebite fist was stopped, and the other person spoke out, "I'm not your enemy, I'm here to help." "You, Crowley." Xavier recognized him, and suspicion filled his face. "Why are you here?" "I'll explain later. Right now we need to leave this place." "Follow me." Crowley's expression was extremely solemn as he dragged Xavier and left the place. Still, Xavier shrugged off the man's hands once they reached a corner of the school. What exactly is happening? I said it before, I'm here to help. Crowley put on an extremely serious face. Do you know the identity of those people who abducted your sister earlier? The Empire's special forces. Xavier spat out the name. Learning of this fact, all his hopes of police help had been dashed. And they're lackeys of the special forces. There was a tinge of hatred in Crowley's voice. Not only do rampantly kill adult bloodline carriers, they capture our children and brainwash them into becoming their own recruits. Bloodline carriers, could it be? Xavier suddenly recalled the contents of his family's inherited book. I implicated all of you this time. You'd best give your parents a call and let them avoid all risks, Crowley said apologetically. Wait, Xavier shrugged his hands. He'd learnt too much today, causing him to feel dizzy. Who exactly are you? Why did you say you all? Wariness crept in Xavier's eyes, and every muscle of his bulged like that of a leopard about to leap on its prey. I belong to the Bloodline Alliance, an organization formed to resist the Empire. Our activities in Thousand Bears City attracted the attention of the Special Forces, Crowley said slowly. You criminal ringleader. Before Crowley could finish speaking, Xavier sent out a punch that carried the phantom of a black snake. Hiss! The same giant snake serpent appeared behind Crowley. He punched out the same way, accompanied by the hiss of an ancient snake. Xavier's fist was caught in Crowley's palm, no damage done to either part. Snakebite fist! Shock filled Xavier's face. Only a weakling will resent others and disregard the true target. Crowley let go of Xavier's hands. Your gift in practicing the snakebite fist has far exceeded my expectations. Even those so-called geniuses would not hold a candle to you. Who exactly are you? Xavier stressed each syllable. Me, I'm known as Crowley, but my name is Xanier. Darus Xanier, can you see the connection now? There was warmth in Crowley's eyes. Xanier, the ancestor that left us the snakebite fist. How? Doesn't that mean you're over 500 years old? Xavier's first instinct was disbelief. There are many things you don't know about the world. Don't be easily convinced of truth and lies. I don't hope for you to believe me anyway. What, don't you want to save your sister anymore? Crowley smiled. How do we save her, Crow? Zan, Xavier stammered. If what Crowley said was true, then wasn't this man his great-great-great-grandfather? Crowley would be fine. Crowley smiled, and then his expression turned solemn. There is a special forces base outside Thousand Bears City. The young bloodline carriers they abducted will be detained in that place, undergoing a rigorous selection process before the best are sent over to the Empire. So, do you have the guts to go with me? Of course. Xavier clenched his fists and nodded his head with resolution. Bloodline Alliance. Leyland stood on the side of the street. He'd seen everything, including Xavier's conversation with Crowley. According to Xanier's words, this organization is the one that most bloodline carriers are gathered in. These are the descendants of existences who had wielded laws, but they are now reduced to this state. It's rather sad. Leyland shook his head. Hey, handsome, do you want to chat? A melodious voice sounded by the side of the street. Leyland turned around, only to see a young lady whose earrings reflected the sunlight. It took him a while to think, but then he smiled mysteriously, sure. Some time later, the two of them were sitting in the partitioned room of a cafe. This place was rather exquisite in its design and service, and the couple's room was also good at isolating sound. The waiter served coffee along with snacks shaped like little animals before quietly closing the door. Leyland waved his hands, and a layer of blood-red light enclosed the room. Only then did he turn back to look at the beautiful lady. Snake Dowager, you actually dare look for me now. Aren't you afraid of being caught by the mistress of the night? Leyland already felt that this girl had been possessed when he saw her. The shadow weave could have easily discovered this connection of spacetime. It's all right. I'm using the chipped body of the Jar Spectre to contact you. The young lady smiled, flashing the phantom of a shattered piece of clay and revealing the power of laws within it. The Jar Spectre was in existence on the same level as me back in ancient times. It possessed the law of stealth, and its pristine waters could immediately travel to any part of the shadow world. However, it's now been reduced to this broken piece. Complex emotions whirled across the Snake Dowager's face. It seems like you've discovered it as well. The Mistress of the Night is the only being of law remaining alive in this world. Leyland spoke solemnly. So then, why take the risk to contact me? An exchange of information and a plan moving forward. This girl before him was rather beautiful originally. However, the Snake Dowager's possession had elevated her aura, and her wry smile seemed to hold a hint of coquettishness to it. She's already gotten rid of all beings of law in the shadow world, and has it under tight surveillance using the shadow weave. This psi energy of hers has replaced all sorts of fuel in the world as well. I have no doubt that she could will the civilization of the entire world destroyed as long as she wants it. The Snake Dowager was a native of the shadow world, after all. Since she wanted to seize control of the place, she'd ideally want it intact. Even then, in a crucial moment, she most probably wouldn't care about the destruction of an entire civilization. This was a common trait amongst beings of law. Leyland thought over it for a while. She was his ally right now after all, so he decided to chip in with some information. Here's some more. My voodoo doll already met the mistress of the night. What? A nervous expression appeared on the Snake Dowager's face. Relax, she didn't manage to lure me over. I didn't suffer any serious injury either. Leyland's retort had been immediate. He'd known what she was thinking of. My apologies. The mistress of the night is someone who excels at convincing people. The Jar Spectre had been lured by her. The Snake Dowager said apologetically. That's all right. Leyland nodded his head and continued. From what I can see, I didn't meet her true body. It was just an avatar. An avatar, then where is her true body at? This information was rather important and could determine the victory and ownership of a world. Hence the Snake Dowager pressed on. I don't know. Leyland shook his head and saw the Snake Dowager turning silent. He then asked, Your Excellency, what plans do you have now? I'll first rope in the strength of the bloodline carriers, and there are several other things for me to do as well. The Snake Dowager bit her lips and pointed her finger out, forming a strange rune in the air. This is the imprint of the Jar Spectre. You can contact me through it any time. It can't be seen by the weave. All right. Leyland reached out his right hand, allowing this rune that looked like a jar with two ear-shaped handles to enter him through his skin. Beep. Host obtained jar imprint. Effects. Able to converse with another imprint holder unlimitedly in the shadow world. The connection applies before all others in the world. Explanation. The ancient Jar Spectre's original body is a giant jar with two ear handles. Legends have it that the entire water source of the shadow world comes from it, and its two ears can listen to any information in the shadow world. I'll need your help in roping in the bloodline carriers. The beautiful eyes of the Snake Dowager looked at Leyland. I won't refuse. Leyland did not decline the request. He'd already set his eyes on the bloodline alliance anyway. The Snake Dowager left after smiling contentedly, only leaving behind a girl who'd fainted on the spot. Sigh. I still need to clean up this mess. How troublesome. Leyland shook his head and snapped his fingers. The young girl sat up immediately and looked at his eyes, which contained no annoyance. After you wake up, you will forget. Attack outskirts of Thousand Bears City. Crowley had brought Xavier to a simple and crude building that was still under construction. Past a board that covered up the basement was a huge place. Flickering neon lights illuminated a place with a cold, hard, metallic luster, causing Xavier's palms to sweat slightly. This is the Bloodline Alliance's stronghold in Thousand Bears City. It's impossible for the two of us alone to attack a branch of the Empire's special forces ourselves, so we'll need some helpers. Come, let's introduce you. Crowley brought Xavier to a place that seemed like a little meeting room, pulling the door open. Instantly, many judging and distrustful or threatening gazes fixed onto him, causing him to stiffen up. All right, don't get too overboard with your greetings. Amidst this perilous situation, Crowley was like a huge reef. His words caused a large amount of the pressure to dissipate. Only then did Xavier get the strength to raise his head and size up the people in the meeting room. Everybody here had a grim aura about them, causing the teen to feel extremely uncomfortable. However, there was one person amongst them he recognized. Is that Invigilator Bobby? He focused on one of the many females. Ha! You should have seen her at your greater skill test. Let me introduce you once more. This is Bobby. She has the bloodline of the ancient enchanting witch, and she's also an official of Thousand Bears City. Crowley rubbed his nose. Be careful. This old woman likes to prey on young things. Who are you calling old, you smelly snake? Bobby twisted her slender waist as she approached Xavier. She was one head taller than him, and it gave him much pressure. Can you do it, kid? This isn't playing house. You really might lose your life in this operation. Xavier looked up at the roaring sea and gulped before turning resolute. I must go. Haha, don't underestimate Xavier. He's genius enough to have mastered the snakebite fist at his age. With an additional set of armor, he'll definitely be powerful. Crowley patted Xavier on the back. Mastery over the snakebite fist. The crowd began to get restless, and what followed next was Bobby's fearless laughter. Haha. How interesting. This is too interesting. He's not even 20 now. Considering his age, it can't have been all that long. She turned her waist and sized Xavier up and down as if watching a rare animal. She then shot a glance at Crowley with her slender eyes, the challenge and disdain within them obvious. Didn't you take 200 years to do the same thing? In comparison to him, what are you? Can we not discuss this now? Crowley could only surrender to this taunt that struck at his weak spot. Xavier, on the other hand, was shocked. Is the snakebite fist that difficult? Then why could I succeed in a matter of days? He now understood that what had happened to him was something unusual. He decided to keep it a secret. It was something that could not be made known. All right, since he's gained mastery of the snakebite fist, he meets the requirements to join us. Bobby nodded and sat down. Let's continue what we were discussing. That's the kind of person she is. Try not to provoke her. Crowley awkwardly pulled Xavier to sit at a corner, no longer bringing up meeting anyone else. Based on our intel, the Empire's special forces have destroyed 4 or 5 strongholds of the resistance in Thousand Bears City. They've become more ruthless and brutal, and the number of young bloodline carriers they took away has increased. A screen flashed with many images as a young man in a wheelchair spoke. A picture of Golden Flower Primary School caused Xavier to clench his fists. We can surmise that they must have faced a huge loss of sorts recently, so they're eager to get new blood. The young man on the wheelchair lifted his glasses, full of confidence. Thanks to them, numerous organizations are now willing to pledge their loyalty to us. Of course, it's on the condition that we destroy their base in Thousand Bears City and save their relatives. What's most important is that the other side is unscrupulous, to the point that even the mayor is disgusted. We can make use of this and break off their most powerful support from authorities. Do you understand the general situation now? Prepare to move out. Bobby clapped her hands, and people left the meeting room one after another. Only Xavier, Crowley, and a few others were left behind. You don't have a weapon yet, right, kid? Come with me. Bobby placed her hands on her hips and brought Xavier to the young man seated in the wheelchair. Crowley spoke up from beside Xavier. This guy's called Genius. He's our organization's weapons and intelligence officer. Ha ha! Did you just say I'm smart? The young man called Genius burst into laughter, seemingly full of love for himself. However, Crowley and Bobby did not say anything, obviously used to his narcissism. Xavier noticed that this man was stuck with prosthetics from the waist down. He'd evidently suffered from some critical injury before, to the point that even the Empire's current technology could not allow him to recover. Genius maneuvered his wheelchair and arrived in front of Xavier. Speak. Tell me what you want. Even if it's the newest version of Rapid Shadow, I can get it for you. I haven't tried the high-grade Rapid Shadow yet, and I haven't even passed the licensing exam. The same goes for laser weapons. Xavier scratched his head in embarrassment. Then, Crowley and Bobby exchanged an awkward glance, but they did not speak. Just give me armor. Xavier had made his choice after some thought. After all, his greatest advantage was the mastery of the snakebite fist. Sturdy armor would greatly raise his battle might. Just armor. Don't you need anything else? How about tracking cannons? Or an external weave connection? Genius trained a piercing gaze on Xavier as if measuring his body size. That's not necessary. All I want is something that can protect me well. The metal for my arms must be durable enough and should not affect my movements. And for my legs, it's best that. Xavier gave a broad outline of what he wanted and then looked at Genius. I've said a lot. Do you remember it all? Haha, it's no big deal. I'm Genius, remember? A projection appeared in midair as Genius patted his wheelchair, showing an outline of armor that was exactly like what Xavier had described. The only thing that matches your requirements right now is the Empire's Venom Snake armor. Thankfully, there's one stored in the base. It can be used after some modification. Genius' hands moved extremely quickly. In but tens of minutes, Xavier was able to don his armor. He waved his arm and tested the flexibility of the arms for the armor, and then entered a stance of the snakebite fist. Amazing! But of course, Genius really is a genius. He used to be from the Imperial Research Institute. Anything he alters can be sold at astronomical prices on the black market. Crowley had changed into a black windbreaker. Are you ready? Let's leave. Of course. Xavier's fists punched out, creating dazzling sparks in the air. Jill, I'm coming to save you. The members of the Bloodline Alliance moved very quickly. In just half an hour, all its fighters were surrounding a military base. That's the base of the Special Forces branch. Once the fight begins, Genius will move to break off all communication with the outer world. We'll have 15 minutes. Crowley sounded grim. Remember to be on time. Any later than that and we'll have no other way. Once they move out from their garrison to encircle us, all of us will probably be completely decimated. 15 minutes. Xavier gazed at the base like it was a malicious beast and gritted his teeth. That's enough. Good. Well then, move out. Crowley raised an arm and numerous black figures pounced out. In the next moment, a bright red alarm resounded in the base. Communications down, haha, I really am a genius. Genius was in the basement of the Bloodline Alliance base, sat inside a huge machine with a silver helmet on his head. His eyes were full of an abnormal fervor. He hadn't just cut off communications. The military base's power had been taken down as well, causing the Special Forces base to quiet down. HSS. Xavier struck out with a right hand that was like a venomous snake tooth. Protected by his armor, he was like a humanoid Gundam as his fingers instantly severed the throat of an enemy. The venom snake armor weighed nearly 50 kilos, but to him it was almost weightless. Boom, boom, boom. Black figures were flung away one after the other. Xavier quickly charged out, his armored hands grabbing onto a fat, bald man. Where, Jill? No, where are those primary school students you took today? Although his was covered by armor, Xavier understood that he was looking quite sinister. His fierce, murderous spirit immediately caused the man to stammer. His body trembled, and a patch of wetness appeared on his pants. He'd actually lost control of his bladder. Just at this moment, a few black-clothed men charged over towards him, firing their laser weapons. The shots only left shallow marks on Xavier's armor, and in retaliation he struck them ruthlessly, causing them to crash into the wall, leaving huge depressions behind. Their bones shattered loudly, and it was obvious that they would not live. Speak quickly, or you're next. Rescue, I'll say it. They're in basement too. The immense threat of death cured the fatty's stutter, and he spilled the beans in a hurry. Crash! Xavier tossed him to the side and charged down to the basement. Trash, you're all trash! An icy voice sounded, causing Xavier's heart to skip a beat. He soon saw a black-robed figure that made his eyes bulge in rage. It was the middle-aged man who had abducted his sister, and he was still wearing the same jacket. The guards here are too weak. The man didn't carry any weapons on him, and the unzipped jacket flapped in the wind to reveal the perfect abdominal muscles of his body. It gave Xavier an extreme sense of danger. At the man's feet were many dead members of the Bloodline Alliance, and on his body were scars from the aftermath of an explosion. Give me back my sister, Xavier howled. Oh, you're that kid from before. Hef, looks like that idiot base is dead. The middle-aged man inhaled deeply. Make sure to remember my name. I'm Wolf Fang, the one who will kill you tonight. Ow, a strong force field emanated from the man's body, making Xavier feel like he was standing helplessly before a canine on the grassy plains. Hiss. He quickly activated the snakebite fist in response, and the phantom of a black serpent appeared behind him. Huh, interesting. I'll be able to toy with you a little while longer. Wolf Fang's eyes brightened. Boom. However, the ceiling broke apart just as Wolf Fang was about to make his move, and Crowley descended to stand in front of Xavier. Go, I'll stop him. Thank you. Xavier rapidly disappeared into the passage, but Crowley and Wolf Fang no longer minded him. Keek, Crowley, one of the top 5 experts of the Bloodline Alliance. You're wanted for 15 charges of treason, a rank SSS criminal. Wolf Fang's gaze at Crowley was like nothing else existed in the world. Javis lackey, eh? Your hands are stained with the blood of my people. A pea-sized ball of explosion radiated out from Crowley, and a fine black mist appeared to fight back against Wolf Fang's force field. A black python seemed to emerge from within the mist, its vertical eyes glaring at Wolf Fang. Ha ha ha! Interesting, quite interesting. So that kid just now was your student, or is he a descendant? Wolf Fang guffawed as he charged forward like a tank. The battle had begun. What is this? Having entered the room in the basement, Xavier was scared out of his wits at the sight he'd witnessed. Multiple giant nutrition pods littered the area, containing creatures of different species and even human beings. The humans themselves seemed to be from all age groups. However, even if these people looked normal, there was definitely something odd about them. Xavier peered through one cylinder of glass, seeing a little boy with purple skin and a pair of wings protruding from his back. It seemed to be some form of deformity. The little boy suddenly opened his eyes, his yellow pupils staring icily at Xavier. It was a look of utter despair and death. It's alive. darkness seemed to envelop Xavier at this instant. He'd lived his life as an ordinary citizen so far, so this was the first time the vile, dark reality was put in front of him. Seeing that there were live specimens here, Xavier suddenly got worried. Jill! Boom. He destroyed a black mechanical lock, revealing an underground basement. A putrid stench emanated from within. Jill, are you there? Xavier opened one of the cages underground, but he only saw a few girls with unfamiliar faces. 5 minutes left. Make sure to withdraw in time. Genius sounded rather nervous through the earpiece. Several other members who'd followed Xavier exchanged looks and immediately began scouring for Jill. Xavier did not mind the actions of the members. He'd only wanted to find Jill right now. Get lost! Several Special Forces members were sent flying back and died miserably as a loud serpent hissed. This place was only a branch base, and it wasn't prepared for such a relentless ambush. It probably held more administrators than soldiers, so Xavier with his armor on was like a ferocious beast that swept away everything in his path. Underground room 2. He kicked open a metal door and saw several girls crouching in the corner. All of them wore the uniform of Golden Flower Primary School. Jill! Xavier howled, but there was no response. Not here too, what's happening? He forcefully picked up a researcher in a white lab coat, the strength in his wrist causing the man's face to turn red. Cough! The kids from Golden Flower Primary School that were captured today are here. The researcher's face turned purple as he uttered several more words. However, some special specimens were just taken away, en route to headquarters. Cough, I told you everything I know, please spare me. Damn it! Xavier's eyes turned red, and he crushed the man's throat without much effort. Bang! The corpse fell lifelessly to the ground. Xavier then waved his hands and sent the little children running out of the room. Right now, he could only walk around aimlessly in the underground base. Enemy troops will arrive in 1 minute. Evacuate immediately. Genius' voice sounded once again. He was extremely exasperated now, but Xavier seemed not to hear anything he was saying. What are you doing, you idiot? Bang. A fist struck Xavier's face, causing him to be embedded into the wall that had crumbled partially, but it had turned him clear-headed. Here, Jill, not here. So what? You haven't found your sister. Bobby wore a tight uniform as she punched Xavier again, sending him flying out from the wall. She then stepped on Xavier. She's not dead, so as long as she's alive, there will always be a chance. But right now, you are very likely to die here before her. Yes, the headquarters of the Special Forces, I have to go there. Xavier's pupils suddenly blazed with flames. Thank you, Miss Bobby also. How is Crowley right now? He's in trouble. Wolf Fang is Javis' right-hand man, so he is very powerful. Only Crowley here can resist him, and their support troops came in faster than expected. The only comfort is that the other members in this base aren't strong fighters, so we already rescued a large number of people. I'll help him. Without further hesitation, Xavier jumped on his feet quickly and ran at a speed that Bobby could not chase after. Sigh, young people nowadays. Without knowing why, Bobby smiled lightly. But very soon she surveyed her surroundings. What are all of you waiting for? Hurry and evacuate. Take everything that can be brought away and destroy the rest. I want the sins of this place to be burned away by fire. Pit-pat, pit-pat. Droplets of fresh blood fell of the ground, accompanied by heavy panting. Crowley looked at the 3 deep gashes on his chest and at the blood pouring profusely out of the wounds. Wolf Fang had managed to expose his bone. Ha! How is it? A top expert of the Bloodline Alliance only has this much ability. Wolf Fang laughed maniacally. His shirt had been ripped open, and his aura began to converge, forming the phantom of a wolf behind him. Experts like them were far faster than normal human beings. Unless one could cast spells instantly, a rapid shadow wristwatch was of no use at this level. You're a bloodline carrier as well. Why betray your kin? Crowley asked, panting. You haven't seen the might of the Empire, Wolf Fang squinted. You'll never be able to imagine the kind of existence that backs it up. Compared to them, I am but an ant. Ah, you already lost the heart to improve yourself as a practitioner. Crowley swayed, as if he was going to collapse at any moment. It doesn't matter what you say now because you are going to die here today. Wolf Fang struck out, and a powerful gale accompanied his strike which looked like the jaws of a wolf. Wolf Fang punch. Hiss. A black figure stood before Crowley and a snake hissed loudly, but the black figure was sent flying back. Kid, you actually dare to return? Wolf Fang looked at Xavier. Hurry and leave, you aren't his match. Crowley looked extremely worried now. Don't worry, I'm fine. Xavier picked himself up from the ground and patted off the dirt on his body. Catcha, however, his expression soon changed. A spiderweb of a crack appeared on his fist, soon extending to his arms and even his shoulders. His armor quickly shattered into pieces, revealing the teenage boy within. Hee. My wolf fang punch has the power to shatter and shock anything it touches, so it is the best for destroying things. Wolf Fang stood before Xavier, like a giant wolf which had found his prey. Not good. Wolf Fang is stronger than I'd expected. Even the other members that Bobby brought as support are not going to be of much use. Cold sweat began to form at the tip of Xavier's brows. No, I still have to find Jill. How can I die here? The youth clenched his fist. This intense desire to live made its way to Leyland, who was watching on as a spectator. Forget it. He is after all a descendant of the Snake Dowager. I just agreed to look after her bloodline. How could I betray that so quickly? Leyland smiled and gently tapped in the air with his finger. Transfer, Xavier lost his focus for a moment, but he soon felt something burning up in his chest. A pain reverberated from the very depths of his soul, immediately breaking the defenses of his spirit to render him unconscious. However, his body stood still in the real world. Were his clothes to be taken off, one would be able to see dark yet beautiful runes form a mandara flower that spread out from his heart. Many powerful glyphs formed its exquisite petals. What are you trying to do, kid? Wolf Fang felt shivers run down his spine, and he sensed a great danger to his life. Damn it! He struck out under the pressure, forming the sharpest of wind blades. Secret technique, feral wind wolf crunch. Ow, a distant howl sounded, and the gale turned into a giant wolf jaw that engulfed the teen. However, Wolf Fang actually felt the threat to his life increase, amplifying over tenfold in an instant. The fear almost stopped his heart. A figure walked out of the wolf jaw, completely unharmed. Wolf Fang let out a cry of astonishment, but it was too late. A black datura flower bloomed faintly in the void. Not bad. Leyland nodded his head as he saw Crowley taking the unconscious Xavier away. The other members of the Bloodline Alliance had also retreated, but that was after they had set the base on fire, turning everything into ashes. However, what are these impure descendants of the Snake Dowager doing here? She has so many descendants of her bloodline in the purgatory world, these few here do not even matter. Unless, Leyland's eyes brightened, she wants the other beings of laws to revive using their bloodline. That'll consume a lot. So then, a bloodline corruption will occur, allowing her to resist Shar's weave. Many possibilities flashed before Leyland's eyes, all simulated by the AI chip. Hurry and leave. Crowley hopped onto an aircraft with Xavier in tow. You actually made it out alive. Disasters do have long lives, Bobby exclaimed. Still, she could not hide the joy in her eyes. Don't make fun of me at a time like this. Crowley smiled wryly and placed Xavier down. Right now, Xavier's eyes were shut and he seemed to be unconscious. What happened to him, and what about Wolf Fang? Bobby looked at Crowley. I know you have a lot of trump cards. It isn't my accomplishment this time. The bitterness in Crowley's eyes were more apparent than ever before as he pointed at Xavier. He was the one who killed Wolf Fang. If not for him, I'd have wound up dead. Impossible. Many members of the Bloodline Alliance exclaimed in astonishment. Even Bobby was stunned for a moment before she began to look at the youth lying on the cold, hard floor. You mean? He killed a powerful figure of the Special Forces, Javis, right-hand man. He eliminated Wolf Fang. There's a limit to how much you can joke. I hope I was joking as well, but the fact is undeniable. Crowley's face turned stern. I sense the power of our ancestor awakening within Xavier's blood. Have any of you felt it? The power of our bloodline has increased, especially in this short period of time. A bloodline carrier could only obtain strength from their bloodline, and their position and status depended on the purity and concentration of their blood. Bloodline carriers would thus weaken from generation to generation, and it was rare for a descendant to surpass their ancestor. However, they had all felt their powers from the bloodline increasing. This was extremely abnormal. What are you trying to say? Bobby looked at Crowley as she retracted her smile. It's just a feeling. A huge revolution is soon approaching, so special occurrences are to be expected. And there's also a genius like this kid. Crowley exhaled deeply. Hey, bros. If you're talking about a revolution, I have something here that might interest you guys. Wanna have a look at it? Genius figure was projected from the ceiling. What is it? Bobby frowned. It had better be something useful, if not I'll put your eyeballs up your ass when we get back to the base. I swear. Genius covered his right mechanical eye with his hand as if he was afraid, but then his expression turned serious. Hee, I'm not joking. Look at this. While you guys were invading the base, I discovered several things that would send the entire world into chaos if they're revealed. Genius hurriedly transmitted some information after seeing the distrust in their eyes. A top-secret document carrying the Imperial seal quelled their disbelief. This is... The light on the screen reflected off Bobby's face, revealing her shock. It seems like we need to make a trip to the Eastern Seas before heading for Carolyn and the headquarters of the Special Forces. Crowley said slowly, extremely solemn. A giant propeller along with the chatter of multiple people combined with the noises of shifting items shocked Xavier out of his sleep. Only then did the feeling of a devil possessing his body disappear. Where is this? Xavier asked blankly. He could barely recall a fight against Wolf Fang with Crowley, but he had no memory of what happened next. Don't move and don't try to get up. The skin on your back will be torn apart. Genius turned around his wheelchair, patting the healing pod Xavier was in. How is it? This is the latest version of the healing pods from the Empire, able to cure even rank 7 to rank 10 diseases. I even added the beautifying feature, no need for thanks. Oh, okay. It seems like Crowley is safe. Xavier sighed, finally sensing a large sticky substance on his burning back. What's happening outside? Are we shifting? Shift, oh God. You can actually hear that from inside the pod. What frightening senses? Genius gasped before he closed his eyes, causing Xavier to feel like he would be dissected at any moment. You didn't answer my question. Xavier returned in his wariness. Oh, yes, we're shifting bases. We've given up on this one. After all, nobody can launch an open attack on the Empire without suffering repercussions. Genius shrugged his shoulders. Still, it's not really a problem. The Bloodline Alliance has many bases, from the icy north to the extreme south and the eastern seas. Our men cover the entire continent, so losing 1 or 2 bases is no big deal. Xavier felt the rich and overbearing outlook of the Bloodline Alliance from Genius' words. However, this was perfectly normal. Bloodline carriers possessed extraordinary power, able to achieve great things no matter where they went. Generations of existence had allowed some bloodline families to amass a huge fortune. Even with the establishment of the Empire causing the power and outreach of bloodline families to dwindle, they still possessed astounding might. Although it was extremely difficult to openly resist them, creating a dark organization and growing in strength was no problem. Oh right, I need to go to Carolyn. Jill's been taken there. Xavier's expression suddenly changed, and he struggled to get up. Just that movement caused excruciating pain to travel down his back, having him wince from the pain. Cold sweat dripped down his body. Relax, calm down. You know how much effort it took to rescue you. Genius. Long fingers hurriedly moved on the keyboard, but he still had the time to chat with Xavier. However, you are also rather good, huh? You killed Wolf Fang but only suffered 40% damage to your body. It's not a big deal. What? I killed Wolf Fang. Xavier's eyes went wide open before he looked at his own chest. The white skin there was filled with the energy of life, and there were no longer any signs of runes on it. The Datura flower had disappeared. Did I really do it? Xavier muttered, feeling a new force of energy inside his body, abyssal, cold and fearsome with an imposing aura. The energy allowed Xavier to recover very quickly. It made him confident that he could recover in a few days even without this healing pod. No matter what, I still have to go to Carolyn, the youth said resolutely. With his strength growing, his confidence in saving his sister grew as well. All right, I didn't say we weren't going. We plan to visit a few bases nearby before heading for the capital, Genius said immediately, fearing that Xavier would worry unnecessarily. You can go have a look in the capital first, but it'll have to be in disguise. Don't act on impulse. Crowley walked in, dressed in a black coat. It's nice that I managed to see you awake before I leave. Huh, you're leaving. Xavier was shocked, staring at this person who claimed to be an ancestor of his. He had to admit that unknowingly, Crowley had become a fatherly figure that he had grown to rely on. Stone Tablet put bluntly, Crowley was Xavier's only connection in the Bloodline Alliance. In fact, Xavier himself didn't feel like a proper member yet, still unclear on the motives and principles guiding this organization. His only hope had been to borrow Crowley's strength to help rescue his sister, but Crowley was now leaving. How would he be able to ask for assistance from the Bloodline Alliance and gather intelligence for his mission, even deploy troops to rescue Jill? But why? Jill is also Xavier gritted his teeth, because there's something even more important for me to do. There was a look of determination on Crowley's face. "Don't worry, I entrusted Jill's rescue to Bobby. Follow her advice in the future." "You're leaving just like that?" On the aircraft runway, Bobby looked at Crowley, who was geared in full body armor. A finger was twirling her hair behind her ears, and she seemed lonely and uneasy. "I have no other choice. This concerns the life and death of all humans on this world. You know, what the world is getting swept into. We cannot run away or hide from it." Crowley looked at Bobby as his lips moved, finally only being able to utter a single word: "Sorry." I knew it. You are just like the other fellows." Bobby rubbed glistening tears out of the corner of her eyes. "Ha ha! Don't worry, I'm a superb bloodline carrier who has lived for over 500 years. How can something like this daunt me?" Crowley patted himself on the chest. It was a strange, humorous action, as if depicting his reluctance to leave. "Will you accept me after I return from the Eastern Seas? Scram, you old geezer. You're several hundred years older than me. Don't try to be an old bull eating young grass." Browley turned to Bobby one last time before the aircraft left. She was stood still, her lonely figure like an extremely beautiful sculpture. Sigh. "I thought Bobby would immediately agree to wed you and become a widow immediately," a muscular brute with a skull-patterned bandana said in a nonchalant manner. "Scram! Are you cursing me now?" Crowley scolded the elite soldier inside the aircraft. He then looked at the man before he started laughing. He soon turned solemn. "Comrades, this incident does not concern just the lives of the Bloodline Alliance. Instead, it involves the life and death of the entire world. Thank you. Even if the people do not realize our contributions today, our spirit will stand forever proud for eons to come." "Who cares about that much?" "Yawn." A doll-like girl yawned, revealing a cute pair of canine teeth. There seemed to be even some blood on her crowns. "No matter what, we must destroy the Empire's wishes at all cost. Isn't that what we've been doing all along?" Many people agreed with the girl's words. "If that's the case..." Crowley cleared his throat. "Let me introduce you to one of the Empire's secret plans in the Eastern Seas, codenamed Project X. Keep in mind that this matter is of utmost importance, not something the Bloodline Alliance can handle alone. We've already sought help from the Coven of Witches, the Knights of the Round Table, and the Martial Arts Association." Crowley's words caused the rest of them to sink into silence. Just like the Bloodline Alliance represented the remaining power of bloodlines, the Coven contained the remaining magicians of the Shadow World. The other two groups also represented the inheritances of different fighting styles. Put plainly, they were the remaining underground forces in the Empire. What was the Empire planning that these four forces had to come together to fight it? The people in the aircraft soon turned silent as they listened to Crowley speak. The more he said, the more serious they became, and the worse the shadows on their faces turned. Tens of thousands of meters under sea level, at the bottom of the Eastern Seas, a monster was swimming past this place, its ability to survive the sea pressure that could kill most others a testament to its might. It could transmit infrasound from near its eyes, causing many marine creatures to die immediately and become its food. Puff. Just a whistle produced a whirlpool in its jaws, powerful enough to destroy an entire island. The suction caused the surrounding fish and mosses to be sucked into its huge maw, expelling a large amount of water and only leaving behind fresh food. The creature did not seem to be satisfied with this meal, as it moved even deeper. A casual swipe of its tail was powerful enough to cause a tsunami on the sea surface. This was a metalback whale. These creatures were the kings of the Eastern Seas, ruling over it since ancient times. If not for the massive burden of their huge bodies, they could have advanced to become beings of laws as powerful as rank 7 magi. It was extremely lucky to avoid the scans of the Mistress of the Night back then. However, things were different now. The various cities near the Eastern Seas had passed down legends of a sea devil king through the generations, and the advancement of science had managed to reveal the metalback whale's weakness. Rumble. A psi-energy submarine appeared here, larger than even the whale. 2 psi-energy webs appeared on its sides, launching a snare with powerful high-voltage currents that paralyzed the beast. Shadow spells, cannon fire, and poison javelins soon followed, exploding on the whale's back like fireworks. Woo. The metalback whale howled with anger as its massive body writhed in pain. Its thick skin withstood most of the attacks, and it tried to swim away, pulling the net that was attached to the submarine. The greatest technology of the Empire was now pitting its might against this ancient beast. The waves from the tussle caused the seas to rage wildly, putting many coastal cities on alert. It was even messier in the trench. A little girl that was as beautiful as an orchid stood alone on the submarine's command deck that seemed like a battleship, loneliness apparent in her eyes. Several white-haired old men in the uniform of the Imperial Navy looked at the whale on the large screen before reporting respectfully. "Princess, the force field reports on the beast are here. The submarine's psi energy reserves are at 82%. If we have another 5 minutes, we'll be able to completely analyze it and activate a counter force field." If the outside world knew of this girl's identity, they would definitely be shocked. She was a member of the royal family here in secret, commanding the Navy in an attempt to capture an ancient beast. "Do what you must!" The princess waved her hands, her voice as melodious as a skylark. Moments later, the metalback whale's force field was broken, and blood spurted from its body. A dozen members of the special forces managed to deal fatal damage to the whale using their rapid shadows, employing legendary spells. "Dawn is ready," a general reported in a shaky voice. "Fire!" The princess waved her hand. "BZZT." The shadow weave within the eastern seas whistled loudly, its energy surging into the psi energy submarine. Everyone in the region felt their rapid shadows fail for a few minutes, jamming up the company's customer service hotline afterwards. All of this energy from the shadow weave combined with the psi energy of the submarine to devastating effect. A beam of light that seemed to be able to split the earth in half pierced through the whale's massive figure with a speed faster than light, before piercing through the surface of the sea and through the skies. Everyone in the Empire was able to see this beam of light, and it even attracted the interest of astrologers. "Long live the Empire! Oh, great Empire!" The screen showed the metalback whale devoid of all life, its aura weakening. The troops and officers all cheered in victory as the corpse began to sink deeper into the ocean. "This is the strongest power of the Empire. I wonder if it can." The princess muttered before sending another command. "Begin preparations to dive and salvage the loot. All mutants are to be dispatched." This order was carried out meticulously. Evidently, the imperial family had a stronger hold over its citizens than most people thought. They were extremely concealed in the shadows, and their reach was extremely expansive. The innards of the metalback whale were like a small world with its own ecosystem. Many marine creatures lived inside its body. However, after this sweep of the Empire's troops, none of the marine creatures met a good end. To put it in other words, after the metalback whale died, their fate was already decided. "I found it." As the information was passed down, a scene appeared on the screen. Inside that whale's body was a large island, floating amidst the creature's gastric juices. On the island was a black stone tablet, and the mottled words written on it depicted traces of history long forgotten. Project eons ago, the snake dowager who came from the rivers of Sanner governed the world. All beings and various kingdoms of bloodlines thrived and flourished under her rule. The words on the stone tablet were extremely old and archaic, but the princess could understand their meaning. The information wasn't conveyed by sight or conversation, but through another medium entirely. Still, this wasn't the most important bit of information. The center of the tablet recorded a monumental change in history, until one day, when the mistress of the night arrived. She ousted the snake dowager, destroying the rule of bloodlines. She established an empire atop corpses, shifting behind the scenes to control the empire into fulfilling an unknown desire. Anyone from the imperial family would fly into a rage at the blasphemy and untruths in this tablet. This princess, however, had a strange expression on her face. It was a mix of joy and anticipation, perplexement and fear, a mismatch of various complicated feelings. The newly built empire had obtained glory, and the light of civilization shone brighter than the stars. However, the mistress of the night was not satisfied with all of this. She needed more. More. "I foresee that she will mercilessly purge the world of bloodline carriers, replacing the humans with another being before finally turning the souls of these people to the same color. The only way for salvation is..." The princess forced herself to look away after reading this part. She felt a pressure from the shadow weave surround her, an imposing dignity representative of the mistress of the night. However, she still sighed deeply in her heart. This relic of the eastern seas, the Dead Sea Scroll, a powerful prophecy foretold by the blind prophet Ari, left behind to save the world. This book of salvation is the only ray of hope, and it is no longer in the hands of those insurgents. Seal this stone tablet under a restriction of Class 5, as anyone who acquires this information will be put to the death, the princess ordered after smiling bitterly in her heart. Class 5S. This attracted surprise from the people around her. Even the commander-in-chief of the empire did not have the authority to access such information. Do what I say, the princess stated icily. The shadow weave rippled, the imperial token in the princess, hands showing that her word was law. The several old marine generals looked at each other in the eye, but could only carry out the orders helplessly. We obey! What was more perplexing was that they, together with the mutants of the special forces, did not see anything special about the stone tablet. To them, the stone tablet was filled with strange drawings, just like the doodles of a child. They simply could not make anything of it. However, something that had the princess come personally with a submarine that could even destroy an ancient creature was no ordinary matter. Not knowing is also for your own good. The princess smiled wryly as she watched the figures of those old generals as they left. The more she knew, the more she sunk into despair. The entirety of the empire was controlled by someone working behind the scenes, and that too for tens of thousands of years, creating the imperial family and issuing the state policies. Even the most stupid of beggars would not believe a joke like this. However, the princess knew that it was the truth. Furthermore, she could not resist the powers of the mistress of the night. That was an overweeningly strong existence, her might incomprehensible. Beep. A connection request from the Empire streamed in at this moment, and a soldier appeared on screen. Your Highness, he bowed with utmost respect before taking out a token. I have new orders. Speak. The princess retracted her helplessness and weakness in front of outsiders, stuffing it behind a mask of cold might. Urgent command. The submarine has been recalled, along with the loot from the mission. The rest of you need to head towards the demonic islands, killing the insurgents gathered there. What happened? Tell me clearly. The princess knew that even without the prowess of this battleship, her subordinates would hold the upper hand against those rebels. However, she'd never think that the emperor would pass such a pressing decree. We have just received news that our research facility in the eastern seas has been breached. What? Are you kidding? There are garrison troops protecting that area. The princess's brows furrowed. Positive, the troops around the area have perished. As of now, the ones most able to resist them are you and the First Admiral's fleet. The officer in the screen seemed uncomfortable. Who is it? The Coven, the Bloodline Alliance? Or is it the Martial Arts Association? The princess frowned and immediately stated the names of the largest rebel groups. Everyone, even the Knights of the Round Table. They've even ignored civilian casualties, using powerful weapons of mass destruction. They seem to be determined. They've discovered it, huh? The princess bit on her lip. She knew the kind of research undertaken in the Eastern Sea facility, and the content within could never be made public. I'll go right away. The princess did not back down, agreeing immediately. No matter how unwilling she was a member of the imperial family. This was the tragedy and reality that she had to face from her birth. Eastern Seas, the demonic islands. Boom! An alloy wall was blasted through, revealing a room with many long, cylindrical incubation pods. They held human specimens, including children and adults. Tusk! They're only clones. Nothing else seems to be in here. A person dressed like a knight from the medieval times looked at Crowley. It was him who'd struck open the door made of alloy, that act alone showing that his strength could not be underestimated. It was the top expert from Knights of the Round Table. However, his gaze carried a questioning look. Although the research here might have had concerned us, it seems like a bigger base than the others. There's not enough reason for you to invite us over. An old person who wore robes walked up slowly. As his muddy eyes surveyed the surroundings, he was seemingly shocked by the sheer size of the facility. Of course not. Cough. Crowley had his ribs wrapped in gauze. The journey here hadn't been easy. What I intended for all of you is to see this. He brought the two deeper into the facility, to a large safe that was marked with a huge X on the outside. Fortunately, we have witches with us. We wouldn't have been able to get the password otherwise. Crowley punched in a string of numbers and took out an eyeball covered in blood, allowing the iris scanner on the safe to scan it. After seeing this heavily guarded safe, the knight and the old man looked solemnly at each other. Pat, the safe was opened, revealing the contents within. There wasn't much, just a few spiral test tubes and a computer disk. Look at this. Crowley handed the disk over. Plan X Introduction. This is a plan suggested by an Imperial professor, codenamed X, using the clones of the embryo to get rid of the garbage lying within the Empire. Current progress, 571 years. Completion, 67%, Crowley rasped. This. It's so hard to believe that all this is true. The knight and the old man muttered, but the information on the disc had stated everything. What have they got to gain from doing this? The knight muttered. Control! This is the strongest benefit. Through controlling these clones and the reproduction of these embryos, they can ensure that our descendants will no longer have any extraordinary powers. Even training in martial techniques would prove to be extremely difficult. The most important thing is they have stored a program in the depths of these mutants and will be able to control them at any point in time. Crowley's tone was extremely heavy. Think about it, the entire world would be your enemy in the future. All of your neighbors, your friends. Cold sweat dripped down the foreheads of the knight and the old man. So, how much progress has the Empire made? The old man's voice was extremely hoarse, and it carried a foreboding sense of despair. They have these facilities throughout the Empire. However, this is the headquarters where everything began. Our investigation results weren't positive. Crowley's watch projected a screen, showing 2 strings of DNA sequences. This is a regular human, and this is the X body of the Empire. The differences lie here. As Crowley enlarged the image, a rune labeled as X appeared in the charts. This is a failsafe plan the Empire put in secretly. It can be used to verify identities, and anyone with this X factor in their genetics is a clone that can be controlled by the Empire. Crowley's voice grew soft. The control and contamination of this gene is extremely powerful. If an ordinary human mates with a cloned X body, it'll only need 2 generations for their descendants to possess the X gene in their bodies as well. Haha! So you're saying that there are people like that who exist even amongst us now? The knight laughed so hard he teared up. You're saying my family, and even myself, might be the production and spawn of these clones. One day we will turn crazy and turn into machines that can be controlled by the Empire, even slaying our own family and friends. My apologies, but what I speak of is the truth. We have already discovered several members of the Bloodline Alliance with these genes. Crowley bowed. However, this control on their subconscious is not strong enough. The right amount of resolution or a powerful bloodline can still help suppress it. Confrontation, I'm sorry, Mr. Crowley. Your beautiful dreams are about to be ruined. A witch in crimson-red robes strolled over, an ancient tome clutched in her hands. Witch Maya, Crowley bowed reverently. This charming lady was in existence who was even older than him, the head of the Coven of Witches. In truth, without her support and her assistance, their breach of demonic islands would not have gone so smoothly. This truly is a demon island. Our opponent is in existence who is infinitely more evil, Witch Maya muttered under her breath. What does your excellency mean? Crowley scratched his head in thought. Project X involves controlling the body. Have you ever heard of the Tree of Life project? Tree of Life, what's that? The knight and the old fellow felt that they would have a mental breakdown. This is the Empire's most top-secret plan, on the same level as the X research. The witch's first sentence made the others breathe in sharply. Project X was already this terrifying. How much more evil would this Tree of Life project be? This project is a medium to connect the shadow weave to regular human beings directly. Witch Maya looked at everyone present. The final goal of the Empire is to implant the shadow weave directly into all humans, making their consciousness one with the weave and eliminating the unnecessary steps. This will form an extraordinary human. Control everyone's mind through the weave. Crowley was stumped for a moment, because he knew that the rapid shadow of today was such a universal object. Cold sweat formed again on his body. Yes, Project X is to remodel the human body, and the Tree of Life project is to remodel the mind. Once their plan succeeds, the entire Empire will become one being. Furthermore, as long as they wish, any civilian would immediately become a powerful assassin. The citizens will turn into the most elite, indomitable army. Maya's voice was still as calm as ever. No one knew how much she had sacrificed to obtain this piece of information. This, how much? What have? Crowley and the others all possessed extraordinary ability. Nothing was more unbearable to them than having their bodies and minds taken away. Insanity, madness, this world is going berserk. The old man from the Martial Arts Association mumbled. Crowley was genuinely concerned that he would face a mental breakdown soon as well. We have to defeat them and overthrow the Empire's rule. The knight swung his sword downwards, forming a huge trench on the alloy floor. We need more members and to form a larger alliance. I believe that many will wish to join us once these projects are leaked, Crowley hurriedly suggested. Suddenly, Maya spoke. I see the omen of death on your faces. Would you please clear up our doubts, Your Excellency? Crowley asked in earnest. Maya's eyes turned white as she screamed in an ear-piercing tone. Everything that you are doing will surmount to nothing. You will never be able to overthrow the Empire, much less the existence that stands behind unless you can find the Book of Salvation left behind by Ari. It's a prophecy, Crowley's eyes lighted. We still have a chance. No. Suddenly, Maya let out a cry of anguish and collapsed to the ground. Your Excellency, Your Excellency. Crowley hurriedly went forward, but he discovered that her life force was declining rapidly. The Book of Salvation is already gone. I see blood and flames of destruction in the future. Maya grasped onto Crowley's robes as white bubbles frothed from her mouth before she started to spurt blood. Wait, let me heal you, Crowley fumbled. No, it's too late, listen carefully. Crowley could only stop his movements due to the powerful strength from the witch's clutch. I see it. That shadow and the return of the primordial ruler, Great Serpent. Suddenly, Maya's body jerked, and there was no life left in her. Witch Maya, Maya! Crowley was flabbergasted. He would not believe that the leader of the witches, the pillar of the rebellion who had lived much longer than him, had just perished like this. However, although he was in denial, the cold, lifeless body that suddenly seemed extremely old confirmed the fact. Rumor has it that a prophecy exceeding one's strength will sap away a witch's life force. Maya's drunk from the river of life before, and her bloodline would give her at least 1,000 more years of life. The old man from the Martial Arts Association mumbled. How powerful is that existence that someone as long lived as Maya would die just like that? The knight shivered in his armor. He stood in front of the corpse, giving the witch a knight's salute. Witch Maya. Although you have come to pass, the flames of resistance will never be quelled. Let us inherit your dying wishes and stop this evil empire. Crowley clenched his fist. Right, Project X and the Tree of Life project. The empire must never succeed. If they manage to rule this world completely, we'll all be eradicated immediately. There's no need to wait until then. An icy voice sounded out. A sharp blade appeared from the shadows and pierced the Martial Arts Association head immediately in the chest. Blood splattered as the voice's owner revealed himself, a man dressed in military uniform. The chief of special forces, the largest lackey of the Empire, Javis. Crowley gritted his teeth and looked at this person who came. He wanted so much to tear Javis' body to shreds with just his gaze. Officer, enemy ambush, the Navy and the Special Forces. They're extremely powerful. Beep, beep. A flustered voice sounded on the transmitter on Crowley's collar, but it disconnected very soon. The sender had most likely been killed. You're extremely lucky. We're killing you under the orders of the Princess of the Empire. So much glory, isn't it? A sick, maniacal laughter came from Javis. Suddenly, Javis darted backwards and avoided a powerful fist. Tian Can, you damned geezer of the Martial Arts Association. Not bad, you were able to dodge my shadow pierce. Javis snorted, looking at the old man with a blade in his chest seeming fine. I've mastered the source of chi, my body holds no weaknesses. Tian Can patted his chest, a small glow appearing from within to mend the hole. I knew you wouldn't die this easily, old man, the knight called out excitedly. Yay, Steel Man of the Knights of the Round Table, Tian Can of the Martial Artists Association, and also Crowley of the Bloodline Alliance. You guys are all criminals with a large bounty on your heads. Explosions rang out continuously, and it seemed like the Empire's forces were slowly approaching the area. What was more terrifying was that at least a dozen members of the Special Forces had already entered this area stealthily. Intense fights broke out everywhere. Javis, don't be delusional. Do you know of the Empire's projects, X and the Tree of Life? Even you yourself will be sacrificed in the future. Crowley tried to persuade him again. These matters. I knew of them long ago. Suddenly, Javis' eyes turned bloodshot. Massacre domain. A blood-red force field with a suppressive aura was emanated, engulfing Crowley and the other two leaders. I am different from you guys. I will be able to obtain eternal life once my consciousness is merged into the clone. Right now, it's time to rid of useless trash. Javis wrapped himself inside a black shadow. A mountainous beast charged out towards them from behind him, breaking the limits of speed and strength. Crazy! This person has gone crazy. These were the thoughts Steel Man conveyed to Crowley when their gazes met. Leave him to this old man. The two of you should hurry to support out elites on the outside. Bang, boom. Tianken walked forward with both arms behind him. He blocked the path of the beast quickly but calmly. I have never fully unleashed source of chi. I can finally do it today, Tianken muttered, as a violent gale of an aura burst forth from within his body. It was almost as powerful as Javis' skill earlier. Catcha. Catcha. The clothes on his body were ripped into shreds as his muscles bulged. The veins on his body seemed like fat, squirming earthworms. In just the blink of an eye, this old man had turned from a skinny figure into a 3-meter-tall giant with murky green skin. Roar. The giant stretched both of his hands, deflecting the claws of the black beast. The two entered a deadlock, causing the area to tremble violently. Hurry and leave, young men. I'll leave saving the world to you. Crowley and Steel Man were enveloped in a warm gust of chi, sent outside the massacre domain. The words of the old man still rang in their ears. Don't! Crowley had detected an ominous feeling from the words of the old man. Those of Tianken's sect could release their chi in a burst and gain tremendous powers, but the price they had to pay was extremely high as well. This was especially so when it was performed by someone so old. Crowley immediately thought of Maya. Didn't she too expend all of her life force before she died? What's more, I may look young on the outside, but I've lived for over 300 years already. I should be the one to sacrifice myself. Damn it. Crowley clenched his fist as blood dripped down from his palms. Hey, don't let Tianken's sacrifice go to vain. The situation outside is even worse. Steel Man pointed ahead. Those outside were still stuck fighting. Crowley could see many of the Empire's elite troops covering the surroundings, carrying the Imperial banner. Meeting, the members of the Imperial family are here indeed. They even brought the personal bodyguards of the Imperial family. Crowley thought of the information gathered by the Bloodline Alliance. The Imperial family of the Shadow Empire usually kept a low profile, but the strength that they had hidden was extremely powerful. Their personal bodyguards could cast shadow spells instantly, and amongst them were many mutants and bloodline carriers. We're in danger today. The two of us could even die here. Are you afraid now? Crowley looked at Steel Man. Ha! Cowardice does not exist in the commandments of a knight. Steel Man's answer was extremely heroic. A layer of white light glowed on his armor, forming a second layer of defense. Flames began to burn on the knight's sword. Faced with such a perilous situation, Steel Man had evidently used a secret technique. Then, let's begin to break through the encirclement. Crowley ripped open his coat, revealing a scar-ridden upper body. The tattoo of a serpent came alive on his back. Unseal! Crowley shouted, and the giant serpent was awakened. It opened its scarlet eyes and spat its forked tongue out, hissing loudly. Kill! The both of them were like raging dragons as they roared, charging into the incoming troops. Days later, on an island. Cough! Crowley opened his eyes, spitting out the fine sand in his mouth. Listlessness soon turned to concentration. How did I end up here? Right, we were in the research facility. The Empire's backup troops and Imperial bodyguards. Steel Man, what a pity. Even Crowley would not be able to survive such an onslaught. Hence, after discovering that he had not died nor been taken prisoner, he was extremely perplexed. Are you awake? An extremely enchanting voice sounded out beside him. Crowley turned towards it, and his throat immediately turned dry. His heart began to beat faster as well. It was a lady in a black gown. Her appearance was only average, but it carried a powerful, intoxicating attraction. What surprised Crowley even more was the feeling of closeness he had, a reverence that almost had him kneeling and kissing the soil her feet had trod on. May we speak for a moment, sir? A lady dressed in uniform stood before Leyland in Thousand Bears City, waving her pass in front of him. The badge was representative of the Empire's dignity and power as it shone in the crowd. Passers-by avoided the both of them, and some of them even looked at Leyland from a distance with schadenfreude. Anyone who had angered the department this young lady was from would meet with a miserable end in the Empire. I didn't know. I'm rather popular now, huh? Follow me. Leyland smiled and rubbed his nose before moving into a cafe. He had no intention of being aware that he was treated like a suspect. What made the onlookers flabbergasted was that this policewoman did not hesitate and followed him, even carrying a warm and gentle smile on her face. Tusk, were they role-playing? What audacity! A short and fat man rubbed his glasses and chided in jealousy. Retard. His friend beside him immediately covered his mouth. This is a public area, under the surveillance of the Central Network and the Weave. Would anyone dare to use a fake identity on the streets? What a pity. She was such a beautiful flower, and also my favorite type, the fatty fought to retort. I actually think that they're rather compatible. That boy is also cute. A girl beside them spoke with stars in her eyes. Welcome. The cafe waiter opened the door and welcomed them politely, but was momentarily stumped. Evidently, he had recognized Leyland, because this was the very same couple cafe that Leyland had entered together with the snake dowager. And not only did Leyland bring the other girl into the private room, but he even left the bewildered girl lying there. This had left a deep impression on the waiter. In fact, if not for Leyland leaving some words for him to say to the girl before he left, the waiter would already have alerted the nearby authorities. Although his facial expression did not change much after seeing Leyland bring in another girl, his eyes betrayed his thoughts. Leyland was apparently a skirt chaser. I want to have a couple's room, the same as before. After listening to Leyland's request, the waiter was left speechless. However, his professionalism had allowed him to grant Leyland's request quickly. What was more remarkable was that it was the exact same room that Leyland had used previously. Do not disturb us no matter what happens, the policewoman instructed him after he served the coffee, affectionately pulling Leyland into the room. The waiter was left speechless again after seeing this scene. Before he shut the door, he even gave Leyland the thumbs up. The room was suddenly enveloped by shadows, and the policewoman stretched her body with a relaxed expression. Just that movement alone caused her aura to change drastically. Her face grew even more exquisite than before, and a pair of watery eyes seemed to speak a language of their own. We meet again, Shar, Leyland sighed, looking at the young lady that had changed from head to toe. This was the ruler of the shadow world, the mistress of the night who was once an intermediate goddess from the world of gods, Shar. He did not ask how she managed to look for him. After all, she had the entire world under her. After failing to search for Leyland's aura, she would have definitely guessed that Leyland had used a fake identity to become a citizen. Through meticulous investigation, it was not a difficult task to track Leyland down. How would a group of corrupt officials peddling fake identities be a match for the ruler of this world? This brought you to me, didn't it? Leyland waved his identity pass. I never thought that the empire I raised single-handedly has reached to such a level of corruption, Shar admitted implicitly. Her eyes shone like stars as she looked at Leyland. This is not your true body, but only a body formed by energy. I came with grace, why wouldn't you accept it? Shar frowned, as if she had gotten upset. But Leyland's expression did not change at all. She had to be joking. Had he believed Shar, then he was really courting death. Her level of deceit was absolute perfection. Even rank 7 and above beings would be deceived by her if they weren't careful. Hence, after Xavier and the Bloodline Alliance left, Leyland's true body had already left Thousand Bears City, only leaving behind this projection here carrying all items that could identify him. Let's not talk about that. Why are you here today, Miss Shar? What do you want to discuss? Leyland sat on the soft satin couch, gesturing for her to sit down too. The spell that you used the other day. I saw the shadow of the world of gods and of the arcanists. There wasn't much room for discussion for beings like them. Seeing that her deceit was exposed, Shar immediately delved into the main topic. You're right, this is my harvest from the world of gods, Leyland admitted. Shar sat beside him in a reserved manner like a virtuous lady. Just the white skin on her hand was extremely alluring. After hearing Leyland's reply, Shar's face changed for the worse, seemingly affected by his words. It was apparent that the fatal strike had left fear in her heart, and she felt extremely uncomfortable. However, Leyland did not mind it at all. He actually used a more unbridled stare and observed this female goddess in front of him. He had to admit that Shar's body was extremely gorgeous, especially that strange temper of hers that added a layer of wildness. Many males would want to subdue her. Moreover, he'd showed this trump card to Shar on purpose, using it as a deterrence that would allow him to gain the upper hand in the discussion. It was like a country which possessed nuclear weapons speaking to one without. This confidence and dignity caused Shar's expression to change. I caught a whiff of the snake dowager's aura. You have met her before in this place, Shar digressed, looking at the place where the snake dowager once sat. Yes, we're allies. It's necessary to convey information and news. Leyland did not avoid the question, and even stressed on the word allies. So then, what kind of price do I have to pay for you to break away from your alliance with the snake dowager? I believe that I am a better ally than her. How about we share the origin force of the shadow world? You have the bloodline of the shadow world. The origin force will definitely be extremely beneficial to you. Shar immediately stated her price. Even more shadows had now enveloped the room, sealing the room tightly. Leyland had even sensed a seal from the world's origin force. Shar was being extremely careful. After having a great chat of over 2 hours, Leyland left the cafe under the envious gaze of the waiter. "Break the alliance I have with the Snake Dowager." Leyland shook his head. He had signed a bloodline pact with her, and Dreamscape itself bore witness to it. Although his nightmare-absorbing physique was perfected, his powers would definitely reduce if he went back on his words. It was something that Leyland did not wish to see right now. So, the best way is for Snake Dowager to relinquish her rule as well. After all, I am a peace lover. Leyland Shameless gave himself a righteous tag to his name.